welcome to the channel. I'm Summer. Today's video, we are comparing curtain bangs to side swept bangs, which one is right for you, as well as the pros and cons of both, while showing you how to get each bang styled. Let's get started. Okay, we are gonna be starting off with a curtain bang today for our bang off. I'm very excited. We have a typical center part. First and foremost, a curtain bang is always gonna have a center down the middle part. You can have it just slightly off center, but if the part line is on a side, it's a side bang. It's not a curtain bang. Curtain bang is meant to be right down the middle where it's gonna swoop. So this mannequin, I don't know that I did like an actual dedicated curtain bang. It's more of just like a face frame. So what I'm gonna be doing is bringing it up quite a bit so we get a nice swoop here and blending it in through this side so we don't have too big of a disconnect. So what you'll wanna do is, I like to always work in sections with my curtain bangs, and I do like sort of triangle sections. So I'm gonna come in and create my first guide. And I typically like to do curtain bangs where there's a little bit more shortness in the very front to give it a little bit of, I don't know, I feel like it just adds a little more texture. And you can tweak this however you want, but for the purpose of today, I'm gonna do it just a little bit shorter here in the center. So we're gonna work in little baby triangle sections. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna comb this down and determine where you want to set your guide. So I've got a little bit more here than I would prefer. And we're gonna come down so I can see my middle part. And because this is a small enough guide, I'm just gonna comb it and I'm gonna lightly twist. And we're gonna set the guide right about just under the nose. So you'll get a really nice swoop. It's gonna hit sort of basically at that eye point. I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna point cut into that. And the twist just helps to lightly form a guide on both sides. So that's gonna come out. And as you can see, we've already got a nice little bend here that's gonna form and make that really nice right at the eye when we go to dry later. So now what I'm gonna do is just come back into this middle part. You don't want to stay in the middle. And we're lining up nicely on both sides, just a little in that corner. So as you can see, I'm having difficulty already with the part line here. And that is one of the first, let's say, negatives about a curtain bang, is if you are somebody with a severe cowlick, if your cowlick is off to one side, and you wanna do a curtain bang, you're gonna have a hard time retraining that cowlick to go to the middle part. You're gonna have to work pretty hard at it at first. Not to say you can't do it, but that's something you want to make note of, is if you have any cowlicks naturally and how they may or may not affect your curtain bang. So now that we've set our guide in here, and I might angle that up a little bit more, I'm gonna take my next triangle section and you're just gonna follow it down throughout the rest of the face. You can leave a little bit of a disconnect if you want with your curtain bang, like if you want it to be more severe. That's all personal preference, and I might tweak this. We'll see after I get cutting. Sometimes I like to keep it soft at first and then I'll go back in. But what you're gonna do is just keep your hands at an angle and come back to that guide, and you're just gonna blend right up into it. And so I am gonna just nip this corner a little bit more here, just to give it a little bit more severity. And we're gonna take our next piece and kind of stick in that triangle section. And you're gonna come all the way to the edge of your eyebrow for this part before you kind of start elongating it more. This is what I mean by that disconnect. So you'd come in, angle, and cut into your previous guide. So that flows really nice. It's not too disconnected from the rest of this length. And so if somebody wanted to preserve more length, you could easily blend this in. If they want to lose more, you can obviously, if they want to lose more length, you can obviously keep blending it in nice, but we're just gonna lightly sliver in the rest of it. I'm gonna base this off of somebody who wants to maybe keep a little bit of length. So I'm just gonna come on this little outskirt, and we've got all of our length down here, and that blends in nice. So that's a really soft curtain bang style. When you go to dry this, you're gonna get a nice swoop here, right along the eye, but you still maintain your length. You could come in and cut this a little bit more severe here. And I think I actually have a video where I do one side for more of a blunt, disconnected look and one more blended that I'll leave linked below. That way you guys can see a little bit more of an example. But right in the middle, you flow up here. You're gonna have a nice swoop when we go to style this, but you maintain your length so you get those nice flowy layers everywhere. And then we're just gonna repeat the same on the other side. So pros of a curtain bang is they do give some nice shape to your face. If you have nice cheekbones, they're gonna really accentuate those cheekbones and open up the face as a whole. On top of that calic that I mentioned earlier, the other negative I always found when I had them, when I wore my hair up, it kind of drove me crazy. Them always falling in my face, so you do have to pin them back. There's pros and cons with any haircut, but bangs are like, if they turn into a con, you really, really hate them. And then here on this other side, I'm just gonna match up same as before. I'm working in triangles. I'm gonna come down. I'm blending that bottom up into my guide. And what you can do is match as you go. I need to bring up a little bit more length here. A lot of clients always ask me in salon, well, what face shape works best with a curtain bang, or just really bangs in general? And I always say when it comes to face shapes with haircuts, I feel like unless you have a very, very defined face shape, like somebody looks at you and you're like, oh girl, you have got a round face, you've got a really square jawline. Unless it's really obvious, I feel like most people's face shape changes based on the haircut they get. So I never say like, oh, you can never have that haircut because you have X, Y, and Z face shape. It really all comes down to just personal preference. And even if, let's say like you read online that they say round face should never have curtain bangs, but you like the way that it looks on your hair, all day rock them. Like you don't have to do just what society tells you to do based on your face shape. Face shapes really are ever changing. Okay, so I've blended in this other side here. Again, I left it where you have some length, but when we go to style them, you're gonna have a nice swoop here along the eyes and cheekbones. So you could come in and do a little bit of layering. I'm gonna wait to do any of that until I dry them. But overall, the curtain bang is always gonna be right in the middle with a center part. You wanna see a nice swoop with them just lightly blending down through the rest of the hair, so that way when you go to style it, you see a lot of that flow. So what I'm gonna do is before we dry this, I'm gonna cut now the side swept bang, and then that way you guys can see a side-by-side comparison once they're dry. All right, now we have the side swept bang. Side swept bang is probably one of the most common bangs that you're gonna see in salon or get requested, or you yourself as a client might want. They're pretty versatile. They work for pretty much any face shape, and I feel they're lower maintenance when it comes to daily styling, but I find them to be actually more maintenance when you are getting them cut. Like you need a haircut sooner, I feel like, to maintain the look of them versus a curtain bang. You can go a little bit longer in between, and I'll touch more on the curtain bang styling when we get to blow drying it to show you guys kind of the downside to curtain bangs when it comes to styling. So for a side bang, you would be wherever you part your hair, and you're gonna cut similar to a curtain bang as far as where you set your guide. Usually with a side swept bang, somebody wants a really nice swoop here. Some clients prefer to leave it long enough that you can tuck. To me, I think a true side swept bang is typically left where you can just lightly tuck. the hair, or you have just enough where like that front piece falls out, but you can still tuck the rest. So that's gonna be how I base my guide today. And so how I do that with clients in salon who wanna be able to tuck still, I'm gonna come in and grab my very front corner piece, and I'm literally gonna take it and I'm gonna bring it back to the ear to see where that tucking is. So on this, we're taking off about 1 inch, and then we'll be blending it down through the rest of the hair. So we're coming down with my hands at an angle. Remember, we're bringing this up about 1 inch or so because we wanna be able to tuck that corner still. And we're just coming straight up into it. And I like to try to angle in to this corner a little bit more severely than I would when I was cutting the curtain bangs, just because that is what helps give the swoop. You can just lightly skim that outside. Okay, so now that we have set our guide here, what we're gonna do for the side bang is we're gonna come right in to the corner of our eyebrow. Is typically where your whole bang region will be. So where the curtain bang, I really blended it nice and soft through the rest of the hair. I'm gonna make this side bang a little bit more severe so we get a nice dramatic swoop. So we have all of this guide here. And again, instead of angling all the way down, we're gonna actually be a little bit more intense with how much weight we're taking out here. And just cut. And blend down. Just this little outer corner I wanna nick. So you see a little bit more of a disconnect here, and now I'm gonna blend in the rest of that hair. And so while we're still maintaining that we can tuck this, usually with a side bang, I will come in and I layer this a little bit just to remove some extra weight because it is heavier because you're on one side of the head. So curtain bangs are usually not as heavy in general because you're distributing the weight more evenly. It's on both sides of the head because you have that middle part, where a side part is gonna be a much more thick looking bang overall. For one, because of that side, but also for two, it's more of a true bang where you need to cut a little bit more in for the swoop. And then to blend that in, typically the other side though is not as thick and full looking because there's obviously less hair. You're just gonna take your corner, a little bit at a time, and we're just angling up into that. And I find most clients don't want this side to be as like thick and severe. So I usually typically will just blend it right down in how I would any other normal face framing. After it's dry, you can go back in and soften it up, but I typically find most people don't want it as intense. And we have just that little tail left here to comb or to cut. And we're gonna come back, see if we need to length this pretty good. She might be a little bit longer here. I'll leave it for now. So I wanna show you a side profile here. You can see how much more heavy this looks compared to this side. It's much soft because obviously there's less hair here. But typically with a side bang, I will often, after it's dry, go back in and texturize this some so you guys can see. I'll leave it and dry it before I texturize it, but 9 times out of 10, usually I texturize into this because it'll be so heavy. Okay, we're gonna show you guys side by side here before I get them dry. Okay, I've got both of the mannequins are cut now. We have our side swept bang here with the curtain bangs here. I just wanted to show them to you visually wet before I dry them. You can see the curtain bangs, we are a true middle part, we're right at our nose, but you have a much wider section here that's sort of almost straight across. They won't be when we go to dry them, but on the side swept, we have a nice soft flow that goes in. They both extend into their lengths, and from a side view, they look actually a little similar from the side, but this is gonna have a much more thicker, full appearance when we go to cut on especially the parted side versus the non. But what I'm gonna do is dry the curtain bangs first, and I'm gonna explain a little bit of how you would style them, especially if you are somebody with a cowlick, because that's gonna be the challenging part with curtain bangs. So to dry your curtain bangs, if you were somebody who did have that cowlick, what you wanna do first is really make sure that this top section of the hair is nice and damp. You really want it damp. So you're gonna re-spritz your hair with a water bottle to get that nice and even with moisture. And then what you're gonna first do with your dryer is you're gonna work side to side with a paddle brush, just getting that cowlick to lay down nice and flat, and just go side to side, back and forth with your paddle brush for, I would say, about 2 to 3 minutes, just to kind of get that tension. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna go in with your round brush. I like to work the hair in multiple directions. I will do each section down the middle going back away from the face. I will roll them all towards the face. I'll roll them all going back away from the face. The more you move it, the more you're gonna get that swoop. If you have very stick straight fine hair, you might wanna use a smaller round brush to create more of that bend. You could even use a Velcro roller, either way, but just really work them back and forth with your brush as much as possible. You're gonna wanna use a round brush. And if you're not one to do a round brush, you can use a blow dry brush as well. You would want a round blow dry brush. I'll link some of my favorite ones below. And then you'd wanna finish off always with a cool setting on your dryer. This is gonna really lock in that swoop to give you that nice shape that a curtain bang creates. Okay, and then to style a side bang, you're still gonna want to make notice if you have a cowlick that you would still want to spritz down and respray, same as we did on the curtain bang. You can go ahead and work that side to side if you do have that cowlick. Otherwise, you're just gonna take, whether it be a paddle brush or a round brush, and really work it to get that nice swoop forming in your side swept bang. If you like it smoother, you would wanna use a bigger round brush or a paddle brush. And if you like more of a bend or a swoop, you're gonna want to use a medium size round brush to really give nice shape. And then again, finish off with the cool shot, and then you guys will get to see both of them compared side by side together. Okay, actually before I show you guys them both fully finished, I wanna show you the side bang really quick about dry cutting. I mentioned earlier this front corner tends to get a little heavy. So what I like to do is I'll just come in with my texturizing shears. You could point cut this as well. But for how thick this mannequin's hair is, you just come in right in the front corner, and you're just gonna lightly soften that up so it just breaks up the side swept from looking like too heavy and full. And you can do that throughout all of it, depending on how thick your hair or your client's hair is. And then you could opt to corner this a little bit more. And by that, I mean like come in and almost layer it slightly. But yeah, very minimal dry cutting is typically all that is needed with a side bang. Here we have both finished looks of our curtain and side swept bang. I wanna know which one you prefer. Both are lovely looks that really just come down to personal preference and how you like to wear your own hair. The curtain bang is meant to be styled right down the middle with the bangs flowing back through the rest of your cut. Curtain bangs require a bit more time when it comes to styling them, but they are very versatile to any hair type and other face shapes. The side swept bang is a classic look that breaks up the face, are easier to style, I find, than a curtain bang, but also work for just about any hair type and face shape as well. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I will see you on the next one.